Hi everyone, I'm Joy Rosa with Earthworks Acupuncture, and we are back again for fun epidemiological Fridays with Miss Kendra Sims. Welcome back, Kendra.
Yeah, great to be back. I'm on week 4 of Apocalypse here, so here we
Hey.
go. Yes.
You still look fly.
Appreciate it. Yes, to you.
Thank you. So what are we talking about today? You've got some studies that you wanted to go over.
Sure, and they're really centered around one of my favorite health podcasts, and it's called Bodies.
Cool.
I would recommend just listening to that most recent episode because it talks about like an issue that, really hit home close to me, especially as somebody who studies health disparities.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the heart of the story is this Black woman who was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And ovarian cancer is one of the most deadly cancers with a 50% survival rate at 5 years. So that just means that a lot of people aren't catching it in time, and it's usually found at late stages.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman actually sued, was one of many women who sued Johnson & Johnson, which makes baby powder product, because the baby powder, to keep that substance smooth and, that's what makes it useful and reduces friction. It contains a substance called talcum powder,
right?
Which is actually closely related to a mineral called asbestos. And so they found that Johnson & Johnson's talcum powder actually contained asbestos. And so they were able to successfully sue Johnson & Johnson.
Wow.
Yeah, it was as a way to distract myself about the anger of the general situation we're in. I just thought about the anger that's just been going on, like anger at things that have been going on for years, decades. Yeah. And because I come from the hot and sweaty South, and when you went to church, all of the church ladies had just like doused themselves with Johnson & Johnson baby powder, because you want to smell fresh and you just don't want to be funky. And it's just the thing. It's really good. Yeah, it's good at absorbing moisture. But if you have something such as asbestos in your talcum powder and you're putting it in, say, your genital area, you're like directly exposing yourself to something that causes cancer. And it also brought up in this episode, and I read the study about this medical journal actually looked at a large group of women, a lot of white women, 98% white women, and they had followed them for over 11 years. But they had asked them, so this is what we call a cohort study. So if you take large groups of people and they're free of, say, ovarian cancer at baseline, and they asked them about, like, did you use baby powder? Did you put it in your genital area? And they followed them over 11 years. And they actually didn't find any meaningful differences in cancer between the women who used baby powder and put in their genital area and those who didn't. But there was a lot of problems with the study that were pointed out. One is that ovarian cancer is so rare that a cohort study might not have been the best study design to look at this issue, because keep going.
I was going to ask, is that because it's a rare cancer, but the survival rate of African American women is lower? Is that right?
I mean, that could be part of it, but another issue with the study is that only 2% of the people in the study were not white.
Oh, okay. Well,
yes,
makes sense. The sample size is skewed.
Yeah, and so they were trying to trot the study out to say that this means that baby powder is safe, but if the women who are more likely to use it, which are Black women, are far more likely to use baby powder than white women, if they're not included in that study, that's not a Black woman who reads that study should not feel relieved or safe about baby powder because they weren't represented in that study.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask, is this the, I think you had sent me an email about the JAMA article. Is this
this is a JAMA artitle that they were talking about. Yeah. The Journal of the American Medical Association.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of shocking that they were, trying to say this kind of generally applies to everyone when they also weren't really asking whether about the type of baby powder people were using. So for all they knew, the people in that study might have been who were wealthy, middle-class white women were not using baby powder that had, maybe they're using cornstarch baby powder. So
Right.
we have no idea of knowing about what was in their baby powder they were using.
Right, right. And you were saying that the podcast was giving some like follow-up points, like the history of different companies and things. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. Yeah. That since the 70s, Johnson & Johnson has known that its baby powder might contain asbestos. And so they stopped marketing to white women in magazines such as Life and started heavily marketing, doubling down on magazines such as Ebony and Essence, or like giving samples to black hair salons or churches.
Wow.
So, and the kind of the thrust behind the marketing is that women's odor is something that needs to be like managed and controlled. And it's just, I mean, like kind of the point they kept coming back to is that like adhering to these like white female beauty standards, you know, whether that's like, you know, trying to smell fresh or straightening your hair or using douches,
right,
is like disproportionately exposing them at least to dangerous things.
To the high risk factors. Yeah. And so when we're talking about like what women are putting on their bodies or in their bodies or in the name of beauty, you had mentioned, I think, a project or a group.
Yeah, the Environmental Working Group. And they have this project called Skin Deep.
Cool.
And if you type in whatever beauty products you use, you can look at the safety score of that product.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe, you know, maybe a cleaning project or something you can do during these times is to just like, hey, let me type in.
Check on your products. Yes, that's important. I wonder, do you know if they make an app for that? It'd be nice if they did. Yeah. To be able to like go into the grocery store and be like, what's this?
I haven't looked at the apps, but I would feel like that's a natural next step. I'm glad that exists.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'll definitely be doing it.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. And just moving forward, especially when we're talking about reproductive health and justice, I think it's time to start recognizing that there are non-binary people who menstruate and some trans men too, and acknowledge how sustained exclusion in conversations about beauty or reproductive health or even like the process of menstruation can affect folks and can be damaging. So anything in general coming up as like a woman's issue can also erode queer, intersex, non-binary, trans folks' sense of identities and all of their vast experiences. So, you know, like this is a very important topic, I believe, for anyone who identifies as someone who would go to the store and buy beauty products, you know, like specifically marketed beauty products. But what we do know is like, yes, cisgendered women are marginalized by being women. Yes, being female only adds to, you know, your systemic oppression that you're really likely to face. But it's really important to remember that being woman and being female aren't really mutually exclusive. And in saying that, I just kind of want to segue into talking about traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, approaches to reproductive health. I wanted to give a bit of historical context before we, you know, talk more with Dr. Lee. Also, many TCM practitioners, though they think and understand in terms of yin and yang duality, they may not be accustomed or aware of gender-neutral language surrounding reproductive, menstrual, or gynecological health. And so for now, I would think of yin as menstruating and yang as non-menstruating, to really oversimplify. I will say acupuncture and other modalities of Chinese and East Asian medicine have been used to treat reproductive health for centuries on any place in the spectrum of identity. So TCM gynecology specializes particularly on the menstrual and reproductive disorders. And historically, texts in Chinese medicine, they originally conceived these male and female bodies. I say bodies because I'm also thinking like celestial bodies, as they considered them androgynous. And then gradually over time, people started really differentiating treatments between those that menstruate and those that don't. But by the Song Dynasty, like 960 AD through like 1280, a gynecological specialty had developed in both text and practice. But we're going to get more into that on Monday with Dr. Lee. And also, I just wanted to make a quick shout out that if you are trans, non-binary, queer, and are a TCM provider or reproductive health provider, we would love if you could come on as a guest and update this language. And if you are, please email me at earthworksacupuncture@gmail.com. Kendra, this was great. I want to link the articles and then also the Skin Deep environmental group. They have a website and everything too?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks so much for talking about this and
of course,
women's health. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I learn something every time. Take care.
Me too. Thank you.